Well, for 10 days, I was on what I call pilgrimage. I was away, and on this time a bicycle. Since I was a teenager, each year I've done some kind of pilgrimage, generally on foot, but recently I found that bicycles make it easier to get to water. And sometimes you need water. So it's convenient to be on a bicycle, especially in a state like Vermont. The next town is always relatively close. And I recently have been talking with a number of practitioners, number of mindfulness practitioners, about the path, about how the path really works. And it occurred to me that one of the days on the pilgrimage might be a useful metaphor for this path that we're attempting to walk, or you could say bike, this path that we're trying to travel on. Let me give you a preliminary metaphor first, because this one works well for a bicycle. And that is that when you start off bicycling, I've been biking with many people, I've biked a lot myself, and when you start off bicycling, when you're just a beginner bicycler, you're just a baby bicycler, then when you get to an uphill, you typically think, oh no, this is very hard. When you go to a downhill, you think, oh good, this is very easy. And then you get to the next uphill, and you think, oh, this is terrible. You get to the next downhill, and you think, oh, well, now this is great. And it takes a little while. It can take hours, days, weeks, years, actually, to realize that if you're doing something like what I did, which is start from our center in Lowell, and then you finish at that same center in Lowell, if you're going back to there, then you're ultimately traveling exactly 0 feet up and down. Yes, you're not going up or down in this journey. You start at a certain elevation, and then you might go down a hill, but it's absolutely guaranteed you're going to go up a hill if you're going to get back to that center. Does that make sense? You might think it's not true. You might get to an uphill and think, oh no, this is terrible, now I have to go uphill. You might get to a downhill and think, oh good, finally I can go downhill. But actually, you're not going uphill or downhill. You start at the center, and you finish at the center. So that might be a helpful metaphor for your practice. A lot of the time people think, oh no, this is a hard part of my practice, but you're really just going uphill. And given that the destination is here, that is the destination of the path. The path leads you to here. You're already here, and so any uphill is just a downhill waiting. And any downhill is just an uphill waiting. And so, interestingly, I find that I stop rejoicing when it's a downhill and stop despairing when it's an uphill and just keep going. And if we can get to the point in our mindfulness practice when we just keep going, that is very impressive. It's very exciting. Because then we're doing the point of it. You know, I didn't actually go on the bike trip in order to go down hills, right? I didn't go on the bike trip in order to get anywhere. I just went, and that was that, and that was enough. And it's the main reason that I do these pilgrimages. The main reason I do it is that there is absolutely nowhere to go. When I meet people at the various general stores of Vermont. Yes, which I love. I don't know how many of you have had the chance to spend time just visiting the general stores of Vermont, but you should do it. Every one, I don't know if this is true elsewhere. I haven't seen it elsewhere. But here, each one has a personality. You noticed? They're particularly proud of their muffins, say. They really feel that muffins are important, and they have given life to that feeling. Well, they have a lot of different kinds of muffins, and they hope that you'll try all of them. I was going through Albany. Any of you ever been to Albany, Vermont?
Yes.
Yes, it exists. Barely, but it still exists. And they used to have, they no longer have Peaceful Pastries. Peaceful Pastries. Now that's a pastry shop you need to go to. Even though it's closed. It's been closed, I think it's been closed for about 30 years now, looking at the outside of the store. But it's worth going just to see the Peaceful Pastries sign. It's such a fantastic sign. So go all the way to Albany, maybe on your bike. It could take you a week. That's how long it took me. It's worth it. So what I'm doing when I go on these pilgrimages is going nowhere. And when I go to these places, people ask me, where are you going? People ask me that question all the time. I'm wandering around Vermont on my bicycle for 2 weeks. And they always say, oh yeah, where are you going? And the good news is there's either no answer or there's the answer that I ended up giving. I started just saying, here. I came to see you. And now I've made it. So now I don't have anywhere to go, but I still have a week. So I'm just going to wander around. And then someone else would ask me the question later in the day. I'd say, here. Nice to see you. I made it. And you did too. We have arrived, and now we're free to go. So see you later. Then I'd head off. So there's something very special about that mindset. Everything, if we have some place to go, then this place becomes the problem. This is the place to get away from. By leaving this place, you will arrive at the place that you want to be. But if you have nowhere to go, then this place, this location, this time, this person is no longer the enemy, no longer the obstruction to the place, to the destination. If I could just get away from here, then I could finally get there. But if there's no there that you're trying to arrive at, well then there's no here you're trying to get away from, and it turns out that here is quite nice. So, hold that in your mind as I go through this story. My friend Josh, many of you have met Josh. Josh is my oldest friend. We became friends in middle school because we were forced to sit next to each other in chemistry class, and we promptly became very good at blowing up Bunsen burners. We found many different ways of achieving that aim. And of course, it was our goal each time to be demonstrably innocent. We had no idea that would happen. So we got very good at chemistry, at least that part of chemistry, and became good friends in the process. So we were very close for a number of years into high school, and then we grew apart, and then we both went through similar crises and both left the country for a while. And then several years ago, we both came back, and it's quite unusual that two people who grow apart magically grow back together, but that happened for us. We met, and we were just as close friends as when we were 12 again, even though this was 20 years later. So we've been close friends for a long time now, and we've been living near each other and getting together, meeting in person for the past 10 years. And he often comes on these pilgrimages with me, and he came on this one. He also likes to ride on his bicycle, and so he got some bags to put on the bike, and we headed off. We left the center in Lowell and went off and traveled all over the Northeast Kingdom. Traveled hundreds of miles to nowhere. We went nowhere. There was one day when we traveled, the starting point of the day and the ending point of the day was about a mile apart. And we went more than 30 miles that day. We rode, but we just ended up where we started, which is great because we weren't going anywhere. It was a fantastic day. Such a fun day. And what happened that day? It's a good question. So let me tell you a little bit about that. We left in the morning, and we asked a young woman next to the Greensboro General Store. Have any of you been to the Greensboro General Store? Very nice general store, wouldn't you say? It's an excellent one. You should go. You should visit. You might walk there, for example. Just drop in. It's so fun. They have everything there, you know? Everything. Bread, vegetables, canned goods, muffins. They do have muffins, actually. That's true. It's great. And when you get there, it's so fun. I remember I went from here. I left from Burlington and walked to Heinsberg with Lida, another old friend who many of you know. And we got all the way to the Heinsberg grocery store, Landsman's, which to you may just seem like some other store, but if you walk there, it's like you're in a foreign country. We walked in and we were amazed at this store. This is what they have. This is what stores are like in Heinsberg. Amazing. They have aisles and floor and so many things. It was really exciting, and I remember we went and this is what the cashiers are like in Heinsberg, and we saw this young woman and said, "Hi." She said, "Hi." I said, "How are you? This is such an impressive store you have running here." She said, "Yeah, you know, it's a store." And we said, it sort of occurred to us that she must have come from somewhere herself that day. So we asked her, and she said she lives actually in Burlington and just commutes there and works there. And that takes her, how long does it take? Half an hour maybe to drive there? It took us, I don't know, it took us a week to walk there. Sure, why not? Why would you go straight? You go anywhere. Who cares? Take a break for 3 days. You're not going anywhere. This is the hard thing that people have for understanding, that I'm not actually going anywhere. You know, it took me a whole day to ride my bike 1 mile, right? So you're not going anywhere. You just end up there, and it seems like an incredible experience. So we were at the Greensboro General Store, and we asked a young woman who was just sitting outside, which way should we go? What's the best way to go from here? And she pointed us down a road, and we said, "Thank you very much, we'll go that way." And we headed off. And we rode down and saw a nice cemetery and a nice gravel pit, magical gravel pit. It's incredible, you know, gravel pits are so different from each other if you look at them. If you don't look at them, they all seem the same. But if you look at them, there are different kinds of gravel, many different kinds actually, I think hundreds. And you can really spend time in them examining. And then if you look at the gravel, you'll notice that each rock is different in every pile of gravel. Very impressive. And you can do that if you have nowhere to go. So we had nowhere to go. We enjoyed the gravel pit. And then we continued on. And we found a nice road that we went down. We went down for quite a ways. And then we saw a dirt road, a very nice dirt road that looked very appealing. Very appealing. Some of you may know what this is like. Some of you may know what this is like. Yes? You're sitting there in meditation, and a thought arises. It seems appealing, doesn't it? You might want to follow that thought. So we looked at this road, and we thought, we might want to follow this road. seems like a good road. But I had my doubts, and so I got out my trustworthy technological device and opened up a maps program and looked to see where does this road actually go. This is good information, yes? And we've all done this, haven't we? Right? You don't know what you're going to do with your experience, and so you open a book, scriptures or somebody's essay on meditation, you read it to see, is this a good thing to do? Should I follow my breath? Should I think this way? Should I consider things in that way? And so that's what we did. I opened up my map and looked at it, and it looked like the road went right through the woods perfectly to another road. It's such a fantastic little road, according to this map on the trustworthy technological device. So we said, let's do it. Why not? Let's head up this road. So we started heading up this road. And we found that it wasn't a very good road. It was wet. It was very muddy. A lot of big rocks. Not very many people had traveled on it, apparently. But we thought, this is a good road. I think this is the right road, so let's keep going. And again, I think we've probably had this experience, haven't we? You think about things in a certain way, and it seems like that is definitely the right way to think about things. And evidence is not going to dissuade you from that view. So we just kept going. And gradually it got steeper, much steeper, and wetter. It turned into a kind of a river. And rockier. The rocks are very big. So we were trudging up through this, well, not a river, but a real stream, muddy, rocky stream, and at a great incline. And at this point, I'd like to note that none of this was on the map. There were no rocks on the map. There was no incline shown on the map. There were no torrents of water shown on the map. And most important, I'd say, of everything, I'd say the most important thing is that there were absolutely no black flies on that map. Not even one black fly was shown on the map, but many black flies were flying around in reality. And at this point, I'd like to make a suggestion. That is that we carefully distinguish our maps from our reality. It's not good when we get those confused. But in a strange way, Josh and I got those things confused. Because the map says this road goes through the woods just fine. It goes right here. Look at it. It's there. You can see it. Right, if you just narrow your vision to a view this big, everything is clear. Unfortunately, if you open up your vision, everything is also clear, but this way seems somehow more comfortable. And so we kept on convincing ourselves that this map was leading us in a good direction. And so we kept going uphill. We slipped and fell down, and our shoes were completely wet, and I dumped our stuff in the river, had to pull it out. And the black flies were infuriating. It was at a point when, of course, I was trying to be kind and compassionate to the black flies, but I had to blink, I had to blink. Sometimes you have to blink. And when I blink, I kill black flies. Because that's how many black flies there were. There were black flies in my eyes, so many, that just by blinking, they would die. This happens. It was I felt bad for them. I also felt bad for me. Josh and I both started, we really went into the mode of discussing if we should just call it. And call it doesn't mean go back down. Call it means call it. I mean, this is it. Let's just lie down and die. Right now. Because we were so hungry. We were so thirsty. We had so many, as he put it, puffy pointies That's what he calls the black fly bites. You know how they get puffy and pointy? The puffy pointies on every part of our bodies. We were slipping. The road just kept on getting worse. He lost his shoe in the mud. We had to dig for it. Have you ever had to do that? It's impossible to find the shoe. It's not there. I don't know where it went. It's gone. But we finally got it. And the good news, there's a lot of water to wash out the mud. And finally, we did actually get to the top of this mountain. I mean, we really went to the top of a mountain. And we're beside ourselves. We were frenetic and bewildered by the black flies at this point. And so we sped down the mountain, honestly risking our lives. We went down so fast to get to a place with food and water. Okay, so what's the relevance to mindfulness practice? It's relevant. Our friend Kaishin here has just spent the past 2 months in solitary retreat in a cabin at Maple, at the Monastic Academy in Lowell. And he was very kind to us. He shared a good part of his experience while he was in that cabin. And I thought it was quite perspicuous. It was very powerful. And I'd like to share some of it because it might shed some light on the significance of this story. He sat there for a long time, and what did he realize? Well, he realized the same thing that I realized when I sat there for a long time. I was in a different cabin, but I sat there just the same and realized that the reality is, the fact is, the truth is, that more or less all the time, I'm just thinking about myself. You spend 2 months sitting there, and what you get out of it is realizing, wow, I am really self-centered. So there it is. That's the road we're actually on. It's muddy, it's rocky, there are lots of black flies. So what do we do about that? What's our solution? Unfortunately, for most of us, the solution is to look back at that little screen, which tells a different story, a simpler story, a less accurate story, but an easier story to swallow. Unfortunately, we put a lot of work into avoiding our reality, constantly trying to get somewhere, constantly trying to explain why it is that we're not where we are. It's strange, I know, to think, let's say we were to do a real advertising campaign. Come and meditate, do this practice for many years. Well, what are you going to get out of it? Well, let's say we were really blunt about the best thing you're going to get. Let's say we're really clear. This is what you're going to get. This is the best thing. If everything goes well, this is what you're going to get. You're going to face the fact that we are really self-centered. And when you face that, you're going to have to all simultaneously face the fact that that is not okay. It's not acceptable. In order to get there, we have to cut through other things. Like we cut through our tendency to be others-centered, which is our way of making a show, avoiding our deep self-centeredness by constantly taking care of other people. We have to cut through the stories about how I'm not self-centered. Did you hear what I just said? I mean, it's obviously wrong. Let me say the sentence again. I'm not self-centered. Okay? If you have the thought you're not self-centered, you're self-centered. That's a self-centered thought. The thought is entirely about you. And you're trying to come up with this story about how I'm not self-centered, so we cover over the reality, we avoid the reality with a story. It's tough, I know, to walk uphill through the water in the black flies. But we should do that. That's what I did. I took all this time off. I don't take a lot of time off. And what did I do with this time? What did I choose to do? What was the thing I did on purpose, knowingly? I walked up a river through the mud in the black flies. Pushing a bike also, that's true. This is really hard to push the bike. The bike doesn't want to go up. The bike is not feeling excited about going up. The bike has lots of other directions it wants to go in. But that's the last direction, actually, that it wants to go in. So pushing this bike up a mountain. Why? Because any reality is better than any lie. There is no deception as good as this right here. And I felt purified. After this bike trip just yesterday, matters how we finish these things. We have to keep the momentum going. And yesterday, I could see the sunshine in a new way, in a way that is all the way down in my bones, and is fulfilling, and is relieving, and is liberating, and is powerful, gives actual power. No matter how we adjust and manipulate the stories about where we are, it's not as good as actually taking a step right here. Actually taking a real step on a real path is better than any map that we could draw of whatever path we might want to walk on. To actually take this step is the significance of this practice, to learn how to be right here, to take this step, to be present, to fully engage this moment. And it's difficult. It's hard to explain that at all. It's really hard to explain that. Explain why black flies are better than a MAPS program. Why would that be? So let's do our best to make use of this mindfulness session to explore that. So take a close look at why that is. Bring your attention to your breath. And pay attention to your breath, the direct bodily experience of breathing, as your reality right now. The direct experience of feeling your breath. This is the reality right now. Now, of course, we may tell a lot of stories about the breath. This is like the map. We're trying to come up with some kind of map that shows us where we're going. Confirms to us that this is the right direction. For now, stay with your breath. It's okay if you have a map. Just don't pay much attention to it. Don't buy into it. It's okay if you have it. The thoughts can come up about whether you're breathing right. But it's okay to set that aside. And pay attention to this direct experience. As we do this, we're breaking free. We're breaking free of our self-centered notions, of the stories that we tell about ourselves. These stories are very dangerous, and we should be able to escape from them. And so that's what we're practicing. We want to be able to attend to our breath without telling a story about it, without explaining it, without analyzing it, without understanding it, and without ignoring it. But full presence with this breath. This is how we escape from the danger of being trapped in the stories we tell about ourselves. Just this breath. We're not going anywhere. There's just this breath. This is how we escape from the stories. The maps, the not realities. That trap us and endanger our lives. We practice this diligently. The stories we tell about ourselves are very powerful. If we can't escape from them, they're very dangerous. There's just this feeling, the physical sensation of breathing right now. We're practicing presence with reality. This is the most important skill. We're learning how to be present with this moment as it is, without trying to get somewhere else, without telling a story about it. This is what saves the world. Otherwise, human beings just fight over our stories about ourselves. If we become free of these stories, we have nothing more to fight about. So we're practicing that. This breath felt now. We may find that this is difficult. We may find that this is easy. Sometimes we go uphill and sometimes we go downhill. If it's difficult, then experience that. If it's easy, then experience that. But there's no need to tell a story about it. There's just this moment. Just this moment. Maybe painful, maybe pleasant, but still there's just the feeling of the breath in our bodies right now. In a moment, I'll ring the bell. We'll have several minutes to move around. Feel free to move around if you'd like, or feel free to remain seated. Either way, continue to attend to your breath, to the feeling of breathing right now. And trust in whatever you do as you maintain that concentration. By that I mean it isn't necessary to plan out. I'll walk here, I'll get water. Trust your breath. Good. Very Very good work. Good work walking on this real path. Part of our work is to escape from our stories, and yet, as we saw, that escape from a story became a story. A story about two people pushing their bikes through the woods. And this is now our chance to recreate, to reconstruct our story in a way that is more fully in accord with reality, in a way that is more fully in accord with compassion. And so, with each breath, practice telling the story of your life. And do that by just saying one word. One word with each exhale. There could just be one word that would tell the story of your life. What would you like that word to be? You can try different words if you'd like. You're not trapped. And practice saying a word with each exhale and pay attention to that. Pay attention to it. In the same way that we were paying attention to our breath before, pay attention to this word, and in particular, how it makes you feel. And now continue, but expand this story to 2 words. Now with each exhale, say 2 words. 2 words that tell the story of your life as you would like to create it from this point forward. Of course, you can change this. So experiment. And in particular, pay attention to how these words make you feel. Because how you feel is most important in determining how you behave. And how we live is the final test of our practice. The final measure of our practice is lifestyle change. Therefore, say 2 words that represent the beautiful life you'd like to create, and feel. Feel those words in your body. Pay attention to this just as you were paying attention to your breath before. Very good. And now expand it to 3 words. 1 word on the inhale, 2 words on the exhale. These 3 words can make a sentence if you'd like, or they can be simply 3 different concepts. In any case, feel the response of your body. Each time you breathe to expressing these words, because it's that feeling in your body, that positive feeling in your body that is the path to a liberation of how we live, being able to live even more truly, more fully. Continue to pay attention to these words, just as we were paying attention to our breath before. For our final few minutes, feel free now to tell any story you'd like, as long as it fits into one breath cycle. You can make a sentence, a phrase, a longer series of words, or keep with just 3. Whatever you'd like. Feel free to be creative, playful, in telling your story. Again, pay attention to your body's response to this story. The time for any questions, comments, reports, stories that you may have. Mm-hmm.
I've recently been through a period of feeling weak, overwhelmed. And this story is really helpful. I think my map was like way out of date. I hadn't been paying attention to that. And I got lost and forgot. It seems remarkable to me that I would forget my practice of awakening, responsibility, perspective, and behavior. And so I'm going to say this was really helpful for spinning me in the right direction. And it makes me feel strong,
Good.
capable.
Good.
Thank you.
It's strange how our maps get out of date.
Yes.
And we still follow them. We keep on following them. There are roads that aren't on the map. Yes? And even though we see those roads, we don't believe that they go anywhere because when we look at the map, they're not there. It takes a lot of courage to update the map, to get a new map. And it takes a lot of courage to just put the map down sometimes. And just go, just walk. But those are the people who make the maps. The people who don't follow the maps are the ones who make the maps. The ones who understand that the reality is prior to the map. The ones who are able to attend to the reality are the ones who can make the maps that other people follow. Now, strangely, by not paying attention to the map, you become better at making a map that people will pay attention to.
Right, because once you find yourself up on the shoals, then you can say, oh, there's shoals there.
Exactly. There are shoals there. Exactly. That's right. And other people will be grateful. If you don't mind my throwing this in, we can't really help it. A lot of the time we get mad at these maps.
Yeah.
People feel like, okay, this religion is bad. It's not a good religion, it lies. It has a map that's not true. This person is saying something that's wrong. They have a story about me that's not true. Right? This is very interesting because the best designed maps, a map that's designed perfectly, is wrong. There are problems with it. And the reason that there are problems with it is that the map has to be good enough that you'll be willing to use it. But it has to be mistaken enough that you'll be willing to put it down. This is very strange because we feel like religions, for example, should tell the truth. Well, they do a good job of telling the truth, actually. But they should be wrong in very skillful ways so that we can put those doctrines down. So that if we grab onto those doctrines and hold onto them, we suffer. And it's strange because we grab onto those doctrines and they help us for a while, and then we keep on holding onto them, and then we start suffering. And we get mad at it and say, this is wrong. You told me these things about God that aren't really true. You told me these things about myself that aren't really true. But actually that may be done on purpose. So that we'll be willing to put the map down and meet God with our own eyes. See ourselves with our own eyes. Directly. In the same way, we can make our own maps which are out of date, as you say. They're wrong. A lot of the time we get frustrated about that. We feel like I shouldn't have this outdated view of myself. But actually, it's because it's wrong that we become willing to set it aside and see reality, see the truth, see the path, see ourselves directly. So, strangely, a map that's designed perfectly has carefully placed holes in it. It's wrong, it's inaccurate in skillful ways, so that we follow it enough to be drawn into it, we follow the path, we get to a good place. But once we get to that good place, we need to be willing to set aside the map entirely and see the place. And to that end, the map, even we ourselves, the maps we make about ourselves, at a certain point turn out to be mistaken. But that mistake is part of the skillful designing of a map. Mm-hmm.
I was wondering about your statement that self-centeredness was not of value.
Mm-hmm.
It could have been maybe not true.
Mm-hmm.
And you said it in a skillful way, be not true. Because it seems valuable to just say it is. And oh, that's happening. I'm self-centered, and that's what is.
Mm-hmm.
And just to be present with it.
Mm-hmm.
Because I've had value to letting go of criticism, judgment of anything.
Mm-hmm. Including criticism and judgment regarding self-centeredness. And that self-centeredness is what it is. There's no reason to judge it as something bad. Right? You found value in that. Is that what you're saying?
I found value in letting go of judgment, and if anything that seems wrong,
Mm-hmm.
I could just say, well, just be with it.
Mm-hmm.
And see where that road goes.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a very good point. And a lot of the time, it's, especially in these circles, two people can be saying opposite things. Sometimes they're saying the same thing in different words, strangely. And sometimes they're just completing each other's statements. They're just saying both sides of it. So it's possible to say self-centeredness is bad, and to say self-centeredness isn't bad, and that doesn't necessarily mean that the two statements are disagreeing. But it's an opportunity to clarify, and the act of, as you say, just being with it, that act of just being with the self-centeredness is a letting go of the fight that is self-centeredness. The fight against the way things are that produces the sense, here I am, separate from and in conflict with the universe. That was very strange. By accepting self-centeredness, we transcend it. Very strange. Mysterious path.
It seems to be the way of all of the acceptance.
Mm-hmm. a huge acceptance, a huge equanimity. Yep.
Yeah, just to kind of add on to that, when you were talking about, explaining your story and then adding one word and then another word, I was kind of coming to that because I was thinking of myself, what my story is, and I was thinking of my humanity and how broken I am in my humanity. I could easily say a lot of great things I could easily say a lot that my life is a lot of positive things, and it would all be true. And I could say that my life has a lot of negative things, and it would all be true, but it's not one or the other, it's just that mix. And so when I was trying to find that narrative, I was trying to find words that would only 3 words, kind of hard to do. That would fit that into that, that would have my humanity and my brokenness, along with my, compassion. I think I had compassion and friend as 2 of the words, and then the 3rd word I was struggling with what would fit in, and so I threw in humanity, and it didn't seem to flow so good. But that's where I kind of was. My meditation kind of took me into that also, a little bit about that. What you were talking about.
It's very good to explore this. As many people who work with me closely start to see, as far as I can tell, the stories we tell are the drivers of our lives. And the most powerful kind of story that we tell is the kind that we don't know we're telling. The story that we tell without knowing it. Once we identify it, it loses its grip over our hearts. We are free from it by knowing it. In a similar way with the self-centeredness, we acknowledge it, we accept it, and in that way it loses a certain kind of power. It doesn't make it go, it's not that we're making it go away, it's that it loses a certain kind of power. And in the same way, the stories we tell, especially the ones that we tell in secret, yes, that we tell to ourselves without knowing that we're doing it, the secret stories of ourselves, these drive, these control, these manipulate our lives. And so there's an enormous value in consciously writing these stories. There's an enormous value in that. And the value actually isn't the value that we often want is, okay, good news, I'm going to come up with a short sentence that totally describes my whole future. I'll have it. It will always be true from now on. I nailed it. I solved all my problems. I now know who I really am. That's often what we hope this kind of exercise will give us. But actually, it doesn't give us that. And it shouldn't. There should be a map with holes in it. But the point is that by actually creating a map, we start to realize that the maps that we're following were also created. You understand what I mean by that? We construct a story, and in constructing it consciously, we realize that the story that we're already following was constructed. It's not inherently true. It's not eternal. It can be out of date. There can be problems with it. But if we don't engage in the process of understanding our philosophy of life, our way of looking at things, our values, if we don't actively engage that, then the philosophy of life, the values, the stories are still running. We just have the sense that We have a deep sense that it's real. But by producing it on purpose, we realize, wait, it was all produced on purpose. That's the real power of it. And that way we become free from those things and we can start to be creative in producing something new. Mm-hmm.
I had a very long journey, all corners of this continent. It led me to think about going on the road when you chose this road and finding something extraordinary. Not black flies or a swamp. But God. And it's kind of off the map.
God's off the map. That's right.
And I don't know what I'm saying except for, I'm recognizing now the cost of it.
Of the journey?
Of the journey, of the risk that I so blithely took. And I'm grateful to have taken the risk and paying the cost even now. Because I found God. So there's something about that, how we're wanting to go with the map, and you're saying you want to just be present in the moment and hello, this is where I'm coming. That's kind of, we forgot about that part of the story. Being just totally present. You know, because maybe when you went on that road, that wasn't happening. I don't know. Because that whole thing about it doesn't have to be something that you conjure.
Right, exactly. That's right. Yeah, God is not something that you conjure. God is a kind of joy that's already there before you conjure anything.
And it's just there. There. Yeah, I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. I'm here. Yeah. I appreciate that story.
You know, Peace Pilgrim defined God as that which is not on the map. Everything that isn't on the map is God. And there's a lot that's not on the map. More than is on the map. The map is very small. Even for the area that it maps. Even for that area, it contains virtually no information. Much less the rest of the universe. We keep on trying to escape from God by making a bigger map. That's what I mentioned the other night, right? We were outside, it was such a beautiful night. The peepers were peeping and the ducks were quacking and the clouds were clouding, and the sun was setting, and the people were chanting, and it was beautiful. And I mentioned to Cameron as we walked in from chanting, this is what we replaced with our ideas. This is what we decided wasn't good enough. So we improved it. And we got a map. And we really think we've achieved, so we feel so proud of our map. But it's not as happy. There's not as much happiness, as much joy, as much God in that map as there is if we're willing to let go of it. Sorry. Yes? You had your hand up first.
As someone
We'll get over there. Yes?
remember, as someone who has taken many multi-week, multi-month journeys well off the beaten path, all forms of transport all over the world, to a point, and also for that matter have done an actual pilgrimage route.
Yeah.
What made your ride that, as you described it to me, is a 10-day ride around the Northeast Kingdom with a friend on bikes?
He was only there for part of it, but yes. Go ahead. How is it a pilgrimage?
I mean, it sounds kind of audacious to
Yeah, it's a great question,
riding your bikes with an old friend around Vermont for 10 days is a pilgrimage. To me, a pilgrimage has a real weight to it.
Right, exactly.
And
Right.
I'm just curious.
It's a great question. I also have done pilgrimages like that. In Japan, for example, there's a pilgrimage route, and you do these things. I've done this in many different circumstances, and the way that, and in the end, when I look at those sorts of pilgrimages and this kind of pilgrimage, I experience this as just as sacred. And the reason is that when I was walking in my robes in Japan on the pilgrimage route to a certain temple, I was working on getting to that place in order to demonstrate my dedication to something, to what it was. All of us have a different experience with that, but my dedication. In this case, and that's wonderful. I'm glad I did that. It was a very good experience. In this case, I was also riding to a certain place. It's just that that place was here. The place was continually to here. And the not having a destination, the act of dispensing with destination enabled that dedication to reveal itself again and again as the days passed. As Peace Pilgrim said, there are two kinds of pilgrimages: a pilgrimage to a place and a pilgrimage for a thing, for a purpose. So the purpose of this pilgrimage was to make sacred or to realize the sacredness of each place that I arrived at. So that every place became a kind of a destination, if you want to put it that way. But to me, it wasn't that I have now arrived here because of my destination. It's I have now had a momentary chance to see how beautiful this location is. And in the next moment, I get to do it again. And that experience of being satisfied with each place was the purpose. So to be fully satisfied with a gravel pit, to be fully satisfied with a cemetery, to be fully satisfied with a general store, or this restaurant that I went to that was for some reason having Mexican night, They were I don't know what they were, a French restaurant or something, a Chinese restaurant. I don't know what they were, but they were having this Italian night. No, Mexican night. Was it Italian night? No, Mexican night. Doesn't matter. So, and it was so fun, and I went in, and they were so excited to see me because they were trying out Mexican food, and there I am, and what are we going to do now? And interestingly, that place will, for the rest of my life, be sacred. I'll see it and see something beautiful there, which I have to say I typically don't see if I go there to have dinner, because then I'm going there for dinner. And I hope you have a good dinner for me, because I'm going to pay you money for this thing, and it's your job to give me what I want. But I went there with just nothing. Just nothing. Whatever happens is what happens. So the purpose of it was more to let go of my desire to get somewhere than to get somewhere. Which is a kind of pilgrimage for me. Does that answer your question?
Only in that I still can't really differentiate the difference between a mindful road trip with a friend with no destination, particularly Jack Kerouac style, just traveling for the sake of traveling.
Yeah, right.
And calling that out as a pilgrimage because a good road trip with a friend. You're right. Every destination and every sight along the way is something perfect. Is something beautiful. And
right.
All of my road trips, I take the same
exactly
approach to them. But having done this pilgrimage route, I guess it is a much weightier term for me, maybe.
Yeah, that's reasonable.
Off the beaten path.
Yeah.
2-month motorcycle trip on the back roads, camping, whatever.
Yeah, I think that's reasonable, and having those roots certainly does give a weightiness to it that has great value. It's hard to. I don't know if there's a way to say which is more sacred, but I do think you're right in that having a formal structure like that gives a kind of a weight to it, in the same way that coming to the monastery that we run and training there in a formal way has a kind of a power that sitting on your couch may not. Even if you sit on your couch for 12 hours a day. Yep. Well, I think it doesn't have to. It's possible to sit on your couch in that way, but I think it's true that there is a weightiness to it. I like the word you use. That does exist. There's something in it. It's not that he's saying nothing at all. There's something real there.
I mean, the word is powerful, or it has become powerful.
Yeah, exactly. For a reason. Exactly, for a reason. That's right.
Having done, dozens of trips along the
right.
lines you speak of,
exactly.
I view them as mindful road trips of taking in 100% of everything.
Exactly.
Sucking everything in.
Exactly. And so the question is, did Pilgrim's pilgrimage, even though she was doing exactly this of what I was doing, was that a pilgrimage? It's hard. It's a really good question, actually. But it's a good question, and she faced it. That's why she said pilgrimages. There are two kinds: pilgrimage to a place and a pilgrimage for a purpose. So she knew about it, and it's reasonable. Okay, we still have a few minutes.
Move into the corner.
I was just wondering, going back to the idea of maps, why are we all looking down at our own maps if they have such problems with them? I guess I'm sort of wondering about sort of how did that start? Why did we start making maps in the first place when we could just look up around us?
Yeah.
And we're all trying to get back to a place where we're here, not looking at our maps. So I'm just wondering more about why is it we're working so hard to undo what at one point I'm assuming we all had?
Yeah, it's a good question, and I only have a sad answer. It's a very good question, and I like your framing. Yes, that we used to have this. This is our original mind, and then we made a new mind.
And I think we used to see it, like, I think definitely babies have it, and a lot of times people who are close to the end of their life seem to have some of it.
Exactly, right. If babies have it, they also have the tendency to lose it. That's important to see, which I think is your question. Babies have it. I have a sense that as civilization has become more civilized, we've also lost it. So your framing is, we originally had it, why did we lose it? Yes? Yeah. So, very briefly, okay, I'll give this to you in 3 steps. Ready? Step 1 is, if 2 people are using the same map, they can meet. So that's step 1. Does that make sense? If you don't have that, it's hard to meet. You need a map in order to meet. Okay? Step 2, if 2 people, or if 2, therefore many people can meet somewhere, they can work together. Does that make sense? If you have the same map, you have the same worldview, then you can cooperate. And cooperation is power. Does that make sense? If people can work together, then they can have more power than people who can't work together. Okay? And therefore, if it is the case that people who have maps tend to have more power, yes, then it's also the case that the people who don't have maps tend to die or be killed. They tend to be unable to take care of themselves as well. And so our challenge, the supreme challenge of what we're doing this evening, and what I believe we ought to be doing with our lives, is to discover something that's very difficult. It requires an enormous level of skill. And that is, how can reality be our map? How can we cooperate because we're all in reality? That's very difficult. It requires much more awareness. And so we have to develop awareness as a skill in order to do that. Therefore, we're here practicing to develop awareness as a skill so that more and more we can cooperate based on reality rather than cooperating based on deception. And I think you see, if you look at the world situation, that it tends to be easier to get people to cooperate by deceiving them. There are ways in which that's easier. Yes? But the more aware we are, the harder it is to trick us, and the more capable we are of working together in a way that's based on truth. Therefore, we're here, developing these skills. Does that make sense?